Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sales Chatter, where we are determined to help 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP in under 12 months. Today is, I think, Dry Throat Friday. I think that's what we're going to call it. Today is Fun Day Friday, and with us, we've got a little bit of a redemption day today. We've got Jeff, the Bodacious Cowboy, joining us today, as always. Jeff, how are you, brother?
Good, my man. Looking forward to it.
I don't think I'm going to be able to talk too much today, and I know you guys are both going to laugh at me, but that's just the reality of it. I think my voice is going to be cracking a little bit. And for redemption, we have got Dean back with us today. I know he said he would rather get surgery with a spoon last week before coming back again on a Friday, but we got him back. Dean, how are you, brother?
Yeah, good morning. Good to be back.
So I wanted to change it up a bit today because I didn't just want to hit y'all with the questions. So we do have, each of us have a story about a time in logistics when a challenge and an issue happened, and it actually gave us a lesson. And I've got two questions for today, and they're pretty good questions. Hopefully they're not going to, get us in that mood again. But there we go, Mark, your first brother. So I figured what we would do is we would, let's start with the questions, and then we'll do a question, and then one or two of us will do a story. Then we'll do a question, and one or two of us will do a story. How's that?
Dean's excited about that, so let's go.
Yeah, I could tell. He's super excited. So the first question is, how would you describe the past year of your life in one sentence?
Oh, wow.
It's a good one, eh? Dean, I know you like that one.
For me, it's been the most frustrating year from a health perspective.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
It's losing your ability to be mobile. Like, mobility is a really important thing. My mum always said health is wealth, and you've got to be in healthy. You got to be in good shape health wise to enjoy life. And it kind of catches up with you when you lose your mobility, because I haven't been able to walk properly for a couple of years. But the last year has been particularly hard, having had 2 surgeries in the last 12 months to fix my bad knee, and so it's just been frustrating. Knee replacement aside, and all the things that go with that, just losing your ability to walk down the end of the street. Not being able to walk more than 100 yards. You take a lot of things for granted in life.
Yes.
You don't notice a lot of things until you can't do it. And being able to go to the beach. So this last year has been incredibly frustrating from the lack of ability. So that's sort of my year. I mean, the last 3 years have been incredibly frustrating for all of us, of course. But that's sort of the last year in particular for me has been a tough one.
Dean, I love that. I love that. Ryan says, Data Day on Friday. What? See, Dean, when you come on, everybody's like, it's amazing. It's amazing.
DJ. Hey, wait a
DJ
second.
says, yeah, no, he's on Facebook, so it's David J. Flores. But don't ever call him
David. I'm about to say, hi, David.
Yeah, no, it's DJ. DJ, sorry, brother, I had to say that, DJ, because I remember when DJ and I first met, I'm like, hey, David. He's like, oh, no, it's DJ. Okay, that makes sense. But so on LinkedIn, he's DJ, but he's coming to us. He says, hello. He's coming to us from Facebook today. So health is wealth. Like, hey, Jeff, we were just, before you got on, Jeff and I were just talking about the exact same thing.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ironic.
I'm like crazy. Ryan says, it's been an eye-opener, or who I want to be and where I'm heading. Yeah, that's a good one. So, Jeff, what about you, brother? How would you describe the past year of your life in one sentence?
Real quick, fascinating and totally rewarding, and I'm blessed. I'm just totally transparent. I'm blessed. I have no idea why, but when it comes to business, I've been lucky. I've been really lucky and very, very fortunate. Yeah, I mean it's interesting,
Well, it's not interesting, brother. I mean, think about it. You've been dedicated. You've been giving with zero regards for receiving, but you've been giving, and it's the. I wouldn't expect anything different. It's you give with zero. Like, what am I going to get back in return? It's just you give, and like Zig Ziglar said, you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. It's just the way of life. But I like that. I think that's a good one. I like the way you worded that there, wordsmith.
Yeah,
he's the bodacious cowboy to wordsmith guy.
No, I'll do my day job. Thank you.
Yeah. I gotta get some sound effects in here.
How about you, Dan? How about you? Come on, bro.
So I'm with Dean. And you probably knew that right away as soon as Dean said that. Before we got on, I was saying to Jeff that it's when you get a disease like what I got, it puts so many things into perspective. Like Dean was saying, like you take for granted mobility, you take for granted taste of food, you take for granted eating, I've realized how many things in life I've taken for granted. And there's now these big dreams, big visions. And it's like, you know what? 1000%. I'm like a bull in a china shop and I'm going to get them. And I'm going to plow through everything I got to plow through. And then the body says, whoa, time out. Yeah, you got to take a nap. And I'm like, I don't want to take a nap. And then, so for me, right. That health is wealth comment,
it is gold.
DJ's right. It is gold. It is gold. Like, and it's funny, Dean, because I think subconsciously we all know that. And, it's like people say, well, I can't afford to go to the gym. And not from a monetary perspective, from a time perspective. I don't have time to go to the gym. You don't have time not to go because you don't have time to get sick, right? Yeah. You don't have time to get unhealthy. You don't have time for your body to break down on you if you really want to achieve these goals. Like, how many times do we see people, and especially at our age, right? Like, let's call a spade a spade. For me, I'm kind of halfway in between that hourglass, right? I've got half as much sand behind me as I do in front of me. If I live a full life, and it's not morbid, it's just reality.
No, it's reality.
And so, I want to be able to enjoy retirement. How many people do we see that retire and then die? Heart attack, lack of health, aren't able to do anything, and that, man, I'm gonna have to write that on my thing. Health is wealth. I'm blown away, Dean. That is so.
Dan, a good friend of mine, Jim Blades, you've probably seen him around the traps if you follow him on LinkedIn. He's a railroad economist, probably one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to Class 1 railroads.
And he's a stellar handle too, Jim Blades. Like that's a
Jim Blades. Yeah, in my mind, I just go the fireman. It's my first thing I think of when I think of Jim Blades. And so, because that's how I remember people's names, is with this funny little thing that I remember them with. But Jim had heart surgery yesterday, has some mobility issues, and but otherwise one of the smartest brains I've seen. Like for a guy that's well into retirement, he's incredibly active, online socially, but he has trouble getting around. So he has real mobility issues. And I employed him as one of my writers when I was at Freightwaves. He would write a weekly page for us on the railroad industry. And when I was with him down at Atlantic City last year, I said, Jim, given where you are in life, is there something you would have liked to have changed? What would you have done differently? And he said, I would have traveled more. He said, because I can't travel. It's hard for me to travel now. He said, when I had the opportunity, I didn't do it. And I thought, oh wow, that's actually really interesting because I travel a lot, but for me, it's just another business trip, and I don't stop and look at what's going on. So since then, I've purposely built in travel time around business trips now to just take things in.
Yep.
And it always involves, maybe another day, get a rental car, drive around, and not do anything consciously, but just enjoy it. Because I've been to, and you guys are the same, I've been to every state in the lower 48. And but if you said, how much time have you spent there? It's like, sometimes it's 2 hours. You fly in, jump in a taxi, go to the conference, to jump on the taxi, go back to the airport, and you're gone.
Gone.
Well, that's when I met you. When you came to Mississauga,
right?
You were literally in for the TCA event, and you were gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
So traveling more is, I think, something that we probably all should do more of. But having the ability to do that is probably more critical.
And I think COVID gave us the constricted thing. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, that's a great question, Dean, because I've had this conversation and I kind of look at it in reverse. I would rather travel in my youth than in my adult life. And when I say that, you can do so much when you travel at a young age because you're not limited.
You're not limited to internet service? Oh, there he is. He's back.
He's back.
That was really
Jeff just did it.
Internet. I appreciate it, buddy. And the thing is that at this age, if you wanted to go climb Mount Everest, would you do it? No, you would do it 20, 30 years ago because you have a better chance at it. So I did a lot of traveling in my youth, not so much now, because if I wanted to go back and revisit the places that I did, I wouldn't be able to do those things, if that makes any sense, and then your mind starts thinking, oh, I'd love to do that, but I can't, so I don't know. I think about it a little bit different. So I advise people out there that are young, if you want to travel, go out there and do it, because you're going to be able to do a lot more things in your 20s, 30s, and 40s than when you get up to your 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's that aging process. So you should really think about it and get it out of your system.
Yeah, there's no guarantees on tomorrow.
No,
exactly. Mark says, if it's important to you to make time, if you don't do something, it is because you selfishly decided not to, plain and simple.
Yeah.
DJ says in the end, the most common words spoken are hardly ever regretting what we did, but more important, regretting what we didn't do.
Right.
And it's true. Right. It is. I mean, I think, you ask anybody, and I don't want the show to go off a deep end here, but the reality is if you...
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Look out. Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I'm actually having fun with the questions. You guys want to do another question before we get into stories and see if we have time?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think you guys are going to like this one.
Okay.
If you had to move 3,000 miles away, what would be the one thing you missed the most?
Good friends.
Yeah.
Friends. Yeah. 3,000 miles is enough to be, not. That's a long way. You can't just pop in, and unless you can't actively. It's not someone you can just go and see for a beer on Friday night. This is 3,000 miles is quite a distance. Yeah, good. Losing the ability to stay in contact with friends, physically seeing friends, I think.
And what happens? Like you move 3,000 miles away, you get new friends.
My stage in life, I'm not looking to add new friends to my list.
He wants to kind of shrink his inner circle and get rid of them.
I'm trying to. I'm in the active process.
It's an awesome thing to do, man.
Yeah, I'm in the active process of slimming down that number.
So we have friends and family. Yeah. Jeff, what would you miss?
You know what? I wouldn't miss, because I've had this conversation with my wife again. I've seen so many sunrises and not enough sunsets.
Right.
I wouldn't miss the sunrises. I would be so excited to go to it if I'm moving from east to west. So, I mean, let's face it. If you have 500 friends or 1,000 friends from the time you move in there, and then all of a sudden, they shrink over the years. So I don't think it would be a big deal. You always have your LinkedIn people, right? Because that goes with you wherever you go.
Right.
You choose to stay on social media. But yeah, I don't think I would miss a lot. No. I think it's because of the age, that a lot of people have gone past. I mean, we've already lost like 30 something people from my high school already, which is just crazy, So, no, I think a lot of my friends has moved way, way away, even into other countries too. So
I look at this and I kind of take it from a north to south perspective. I take it from a east to west, I guess, if you will. Obviously, friends and family would be number 1 and 2. But seasons, I'd miss the seasons, and I think don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some days I'm like, man, I'd love to live in California because it's like sunny all year round. Especially I mean, it gets a little cooler in winter, but for us, like the 3 of us, we'd still be in shorts and flip flops and a t-shirt in California in wintertime because it's
right.
Up here it's winter.
I'm ready.
I think I'd miss the seasons. I'd miss the fall colors. I'd miss the leaves coming off the trees and just that beauty that comes with nature. But I'd miss snowmobiling still. I'm still very big into snowmobiling, so I'd miss that. And those were kind of things that, I don't know about you guys, but I need things to do outdoors in order to keep me grounded. I tend, like when COVID was happening, I was starting to go a little antsy in the house, like when everything was shut down, like even to the point where in the wintertime during the first year of COVID, we weren't allowed to snowmobile out of our district.
Yeah.
Like we were not. There was police on the trails checking your ID as to where you were from to keep, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, even though you're outside, you're in a helmet, you're on a snowmobile, it's like you can't go past your district because now you're touching gas pumps and I was like blown away. So it was that confinement really got to me. So for me it would be that being able, the seasons for me would be winter can piss off.
Yeah, I'm with him, man. You know what the acronym
Mark, if you're not a snow guy, get out of Calgary, man. Like, you're in the mountains. If you're not well, I guess Calgary's a little bit different because they got the Chinooks committed. You guys see.
Here's a question for you, Dan, since you're a snow king. Do you know what the acronym of SNOW means?
No.
Shit no one wants.
But, so do you guys not... okay, so here's the thing. Don't get me wrong, like the shoveling, the snow blowing, it becomes a pain in the arse come the Kelowna, BC during winter. Yeah, for sure. So that becomes an issue. But do you not love the way the trees look when they're like covered in snow and like, am I wrong or no?
Not when it hits my driveway. Oh, hell no. And then after the roads get opened up and the snow turns all black and disgusting. I mean, no.
Yeah. Oh no, there's in between. Trust me. There's right. That, the fall area where everything gets kind of nasty. And then there's a spring area where the dogs are covered in mud all the time from the snow and everything melting and running in the backyard. So there's definitely pros and cons to it. But so I guess I'm alone on that. All right. Anyone that loves snow can comment. Anyone else don't. Yeah, there we go. All right. So we that was those. Hey, Dean, how's that? Did I redeem myself for the questions? There we go.
See? You did.
So now he's gonna have a good weekend.
Yes. So I know we only got about 8 minutes left because Dean's got to jump. So Dean, I want to start with you. Share a story in your logistics life that gave you a lesson afterwards. And I'm dying to hear what you came up with because you got some great ones, my man.
It's hard for me to go past the event that got me out of trucking. I'd been a driver for years. This is the mid to late 90s. And the reason why I came here was that I'd lost 2 drivers. I was running that we talked on Wednesday about running the Case New Holland farm machinery contract. I'd lost 2 drivers on my watch in the space of a few weeks. And so when you have to go to the spouse and kids and say, your father's died or is dead, and it's a life-changing experience. It'll change you to your core. And I realized at that point that I had to change, because this thing we called logistics came with a price, and it was a really expensive price, the ultimate price. And both these drivers were 100% compliant with their hours of service. They were great guys, big mile makers, hard workers, like the nicest people you'd ever imagine, but they fell asleep at the wheel, and in 5 seconds, that was all it took. So that, to me, that was the thing that sort of started my whole change in direction in life, because I realized that I had to get out of what I was doing, because there was a high probability we'd end up in jail doing things the way we were doing it. Or if we kept driving the way we were driving, there'd be just more statistics. So actually, it was fun. It was incredibly changing for me, because that's what set me down the path of trying to understand human physiology and why the brain fell asleep at the wheel, because I'd done it all my life as a driver, and relied on stimulants a lot of the times to stay awake in the latter part of my driving career, because I didn't know any better. And the whole process of learning about human physiology and sleep and applying it to the experience I had, we were able to build models that predict when the brain disconnects from the driving task, using an ELD data feed. You take the data off the ECM, the ELD data stream off the ECM, run it into models, in the cloud, and you can score each driver on the probability of a single vehicle lane departure with a high degree of accuracy. That was some of the best things that I ever did. You might say it's got nothing to do with logistics. I think it's got everything to do with logistics, because it's at the heart of moving things around. It's one of those, we all assume that drivers aren't all created equal, nor is a load, nor is a shipper. Everything's different. But understanding what goes on at the driver level, to me, was really insightful, because as a driver, you never think about it. I'd never really thought about this. It was just an occupational hazard until it wasn't.
So, Dean, can I ask you a question on that? Because, obviously the hours of service were a little bit different than they are now, but you have so many hours on, so many hours off. Was it because when you were off that you kind of lived life, and then all of a sudden, so you didn't get enough sleep while you were off, you didn't plan accordingly, or was it just more like, because I know me, especially that kind of late afternoon when the sun's beating in, it's been a long day, and you're driving, and you just kind of, it's like you're so nice and cozy and warm, and you know what I mean? We've all been there in a vehicle. Yeah. But what was it that?
It's a couple of things. It's the circadian effect, which is the time of day. So 4 to 5 in the morning is when your body's temperature is the coldest, and when your body thinks you are sound asleep. It can't compute that you're driving a truck. All it wants to do is sleep, because there's no sunlight. So that's the circadian effect. The other effect is time on task. So once you get to about 14 hours of sustained wakefulness, your performance levels drop off a cliff at 14 hours. So if you got to go back and look at when did you wake up and when you're still trying to work. That's why for a lot of drivers, that 6 o'clock period is pretty bad, because they've been up since 5 a.m. in the morning. So, and then you add to that the cumulative effect of fatigue and sleep deprivation. You layer on top of that summer, which is we get less sleep in summer, which makes us more prone to accidents. Accident rates increase in summer, not decrease. So it all comes down to sleep, Dan. It comes down to the timing of sleep. But even if you still get enough sleep, the circadian effect can be dominant. As in 5 o'clock in the morning for a tired driver becomes very different. The more tired you get, it's much harder as you go through each particular driving period during the week.
That's super interesting, because I never realized that it's not just a matter of, for people who work nights, for example, like, they sleep all day, work all night. The body's used to something from generations and generations of sleep at night, wake during the day. So what it was is you guys were driving from what time to what time? Like you would start at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Like when would you start driving?
It was tough. We'd normally get up at 3 a.m. and be on the road out of the yard by 4 with the wide loads to get out of the city with the escort vehicles.
Before traffic and everything.
Yeah, you've got to get out. I mean, those hours before sunrise are pretty tough. But the key, though, Dan, is you've got to do it consistently. You talk about shift workers. you do develop a routine. The problem is with a lot of shift work schedules is that any schedule that starts after sunrise, so if you've got a night shift that goes after sunrise, you've got real problems because sleep in the day becomes problematic. But if you can change the start time to make sure the finish time is before sunrise and the night shift person's home in bed before sunup, then they sleep more like a night person would, like we would, right? So a lot of people arbitrarily have a slide partner change in a truck or a 24/7 dedicated operation. They'll slip seat at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. And that's the worst time you could do it because you're almost always going to have a sunrise hitting the night shift driver most of the year. So if you change it to 4 a.m., what happens is the night shift person's always home in bed before sunup. That's absolutely critical. And then the slide partner that's coming in, most drivers can get up early, but they've got to be home in bed and sleep by 8 p.m. at night at the latest. So the timing, schedule design is absolutely critical when it comes down to this.
So that taught you,
Dean. How long has this study been going on with the sleep deprivation, and has it improved over the years? Who's been measuring this to see the effectiveness, and if we're going into a positive way?
With the research that we started, we were first published in the Journal of Sleep early 2000s based on the work we did in 2000. And we started, what really started it was there was a nuclear power accident. Someone, I can't remember which one it was, maybe it was 3 Mile Island. The nuclear regulatory authority decided, there was some fatigue elements, sleep deprivation elements to it. They decided they wanted to change. The nuclear power organisation really was the catalyst because then a lot of Class 1 railroads decided to look at their schedules. So what I guess to answer your question is the whole thing of schedule optimization and design really came about in the early 90s as the science of sleep and human physiology became more mainstream. Because it was that, we didn't even know about sleep apnea. We knew about it, but we didn't publish anything because we hadn't really done a study to show that truck drivers have a higher probability of obstructive sleep apnea because of their lifestyle. So I'd say, mid to late 90s was when this, the faculty of sleep medicine really became mainstream. Then it sort of got legs in the early 2000s. Not many people do it because it's a fairly hard field. It's a complex field. You've got a lot of, especially in a unionized environment, you've got a lot of reluctancy to change. In the truckload industry, there's a reluctancy to do anything about helping drivers stay awake at the wheel because the flip side is we'll have drivers pulled up along the interstate sleeping. And it's a fairly naive response because that's not what happens. Well-rested drivers run more miles. Every truck driver will tell you that. So that's not what happens. So it doesn't get a lot of traction in the trucking industry because of the high turnover level. A lot of fleets are reluctant to invest in drivers if there's a high probability they'll be gone in 90 days.
Interesting. That's actually a great lesson because it actually, everything happens for a reason, I believe. And as morbid as it sounds, Dean, I think you're bringing light to an issue in the industry because of what happened. And I honor you for that because that's it's needed. And I can tell you, we go back to the health as well. And we go back to waking up and performing at 100% and giving your life your all. And it's amazing how much sleep plays a role in that. And for some people it's 6 hours, for some people it's 9, for some people it's 5. Finding that optimal point where you work your best and sleeping well.
Even knowing
you to a whole new level in this industry and being a voice in this industry that's really needed. So as horrible as it is, I'm honored that you're doing what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
But sleep is different for everybody. As we age, everybody's sleep patterns are aging. Our sleep physiology is changing every day. And this notion that a one-size-fits-all is a troublesome way to tackle this because a 25-year-old driver has very different sleep efficiency to a 55-year-old driver. So that's why the education piece is really important. Once you understand the science of sleep, how the brain sleeps, why it sleeps, when we're designed to sleep, once you understand what your sleep personality is, even if doesn't matter whether you're 20 or 50, you can apply it to your own life and make sure that you get better quality sleep.
Mm-hmm. And I think even, two drivers at 55 will actually have different sleep needs that, absolutely.
Yeah. As we get older, we become more less flexible, more rigid in our sleep requirement. So as we age, we become more of a morning person. We have to go to bed a little bit earlier. We can get up a little bit earlier in the mornings. So as we age, we become more of a morning person, but we become less flexible in anything that might interrupt our sleep. I say people as they get older generally become very inflexible when it comes to scheduling, going out to events, anything that might interrupt their sleep. It's a general trend across most communities or most countries. As people get older, they tend to want to ensure they get good quality sleep every day because they lose the ability to catch up like a young person would. A young person can burn an all-nighter and catch up the next night with a couple of nights sleep and they're back to normal. If I had to do an all-nighter now, I'd be wrecked for probably 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said they go to bed earlier, the first thing that I thought of was, shit, I go to bed at 9 already. Like,
I'm 7.
Dinner time.
I beat sunset yesterday.
You beat sunset. I love that. All right. I know you got to go, Dean. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
I can hang it for a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I said you'd be gone by 11:30. So
I did. I pushed it back. I don't want to hear Jeff's.
Oh, okay, good. So, perfect. Jeff, share your story.
Yeah. I have to go back to my Ford days. And of course, working in the warehouse, I can't walk, even to this day. Before I start a conversation with anybody, if I walk into their facility, I must go into that warehouse. I must have eyes on the operation. It's just something that's embedded because of what I've learned over the years and decades working in it. The other thing was, and it's a great segue to what Dean was just talking about, being on the road and everything. I took that lesson inside the warehouse when we built routes for trucks, milk runs in Chicago. And I wanted to follow the whole milk run from inside to outside, being pick operation, staging, loading the rolling cages, putting the extended length material on top of that, and watching how everything transpired to all of the deliveries to all the 4 divisions out there. So I watched the pup come in. I followed the pup one night I had to find a domicile to park pups that night as well and pay a diner, like $500 a month to have a pup parking it because you had the hub and the spoke operation. So I watched the hub part. Then I wanted to watch the spoke operation. So I did that during the day and then went to sleep during the day and stayed up at night to watch the hook of the pup, and then what the driver went through, watched everything that he did to find out the inefficiencies of what he did, how we can delete time, remove waste, increase efficiencies. We're able to do that, and then watch the deliveries and the problems that he had at each delivery to document so that we could be able to figure out the non-added values, how we could make his time there a lot. And it was very interesting, like when you get up at the middle of the night in the dark and you're driving 400 miles following a pup, you get tired. You do get tired because, like Dean was saying, your body is so used to the daytime. We weren't physically made to work at nighttime. It's just not possible. And my heart goes out to all those people in the graveyard shifts. But it was very interesting, and it helped me to learn the whole round robin of logistics of what happens, not just internally, but externally. And when you're out on the road, in Chicago in the middle of a snowstorm and the lift gate stops working and the driver has to pull over, and you're helping the driver crawling underneath the pup, figuring out why his lift gate won't go up and down, and messing in cold weather on a major highway, you learn a lot of stuff. So I take that with me moving forward when I talk to prospects. I mean, because I know operations like on the fleet side as well as trucking and internally. And it was a great lesson to do. That's why I've said it. You know it, Dan. And I think Dean heard me too. If you can go for a ride with a truck driver to see where the rubber actually hits the road and what these guys go through, women and men, you will come back with so much knowledge. It's insane. It really is insane.
Yeah. Mine is complacency kills. I used to run a lot of pharmaceuticals, and we got complacent with the carrier. The carrier got complacent. The drivers got complacent. Ended up being over $250,000 claim because he was delivering pig's feet before he picked up pharmaceuticals in a reefer. Somehow a forklift clipped one of the bags or something, and blood went onto the floor, and then pulled into 10 miles down the road, still conditioned, the trailer, pulled into my customer's yard. My customer opened the doors. Everything, they kind of looked in, didn't see any of the blood. Drove forklift in, loaded them. It was San Bernardino, California to Brooks, Kentucky team drivers. By the time the team arrived in Brooks, Kentucky, opened up the doors, it smelled like a dead person. In that time, they had to trace back that forklift, shut down every stitch of that plant to sanitize it because of the pharmaceuticals, and quickly became a $250,000 bill. And from that moment on, complacency in our network, complacency with our customers, and not constantly being vigilant for me, asking the questions, making sure, staying in touch with the drivers, making sure they're doing what they're doing. Driver dropped the ball, I dropped the ball, shipper dropped the ball. All three of us dropped the ball. And it's because of complacency. Like, it was the same drivers coming in all the time. So the shipper everybody got complacent in the supply chain. And ended up being, quarantined for 3.5 weeks. And it was a gong show nightmare. Luckily, positive end to the story for all of you watching and listening still is it's our relationship that allowed us to keep the client. Admitting that we became complacent in the routine, drivers admitting they became complacent, my supplier company and the shipper. And because everybody was honest and upward and on board, we kept the client. But complacency does kill in logistics for sure. That's the story, boys.
Yeah.
All right, Dean, thank you so much for being here, my man. My voice is starting to go, guys. Sorry. Jeff, thanks, brother. Appreciate it, guys. Looking forward to it. You guys have yourself a great weekend. For all of you watching and listening, thanks for listening. Sales Chatter. Remember, head over to YouTube, hit that bell, hit that subscribe icon. Make sure to follow us, and because we just find that YouTube is a little bit more has a little bit more structure than LinkedIn when it comes to the lives being notified and stuff, and always being there. Anything coming up, boys, that you want to share with quickly before we head off?
I got a great show coming up on Monday on the Storytelling Chronicles, Life Lessons and Logistics at 2:30 p.m. I have Mark Dirks, Chief Marketing Officer at Blue Grace Logistics, joining us, talking about the market and how to succeed in a bear market out there and what we can do, what he's doing. So I think it will be an interesting conversation. So please check us out.
Show, brother. Yeah, it should be a good show. Dina, what do you got going on, buddy, besides recovery? Oh, your audio's gone. Oh, you're on mute.
Wow, I don't know how that happened. Next week we've got Stephen Linton from Maya Foods in Denver on our show. Maya Foods are a big beef producing company, so we like to get our shippers involved. We don't get enough shippers on our IQ show on Tuesday at 10 a.m., but he's on next week. He's a big friend of the show. He uses a lot of our information in his weekly reports to management on transportation costs. So it'll be good to talk to him about how he uses data in his world.
That's 2 good shows next week, Joe.
Yeah.
Make sure to join us. Until then, have yourself a great weekend. And remember, live every day to the fullest. Health is wealth. I think that's a golden key.
Love that. Great takeaway.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend, folks.